What's up? Don't forget to follow, subscribe. I'm Young Text YouTube on Dreams. Follow me on there. Follow me on Twitch. I'm Young Text on Twitch, and I am Young Text on YouTube. Subscribe here. Check my channel playlist for individual tutorials on logic, sculpting, animation, music, and more. I'm going to show a few methods and ways to do this. So we have one control sensor that is used for our puppet's walk because the left stick is plugged into the walk of the puppet interface, which has animations and stuff for pre-programmed walking that Media Molecule is made for you if you don't want to animate the walk and stuff. The only reason you might want to is if you're like on a skateboard that's not pre-made for you. Stuff like that you have to do yourself. Check my animation tutorial for that. The other control sensor is for the charge attack. So I'm going to show a few ways to do this on this first video. I'm going to show you how you can do it with tapping buttons multiple times. This can also be used for QuickTime events. I also have a QuickTime event tutorial if you guys want to check that out. That does a different way to do this. So we have an exclusive gate right here. We also have a keyframe. This is the keyframe settings 5.0. What this keyframe does, press L1 or L1 and X on it while it's recording. Power this off, make sure this is on automatic, and make sure this is plugged into the timeline for the base charge, like the charge for the fireball, not the blast itself. So inside of here, there is a on switch. This on switch is connected to a keyframe, which is our stance. So make your puppet stance during the attack. And you'll want it a lot better than mine. And also, make that on switch that's inside this timeline, and this timeline is on 100 once, and it's about a relatively good size. You might want it to be the size enough for the timer, which I have it on 2.0 to get through. So make sure if you're going to use the timeline method that it is long enough for the duration of this to play through. So the on-off switch is plugged into this keyframe, and it's also plugged into the emitter for our ball. This right here is just the ball, like, you know, whenever you're charging it. So that's what that is. That's all that is. And the on switch is also plugged into a NOT gate. So the NOT gate's the opposite day gadget. If the thing on the left side is not giving it power, then it is sending a signal. If the thing on the left side is giving it power, then this is not sending a signal on the right side. So plug that NOT gate input into reset timer. The start timer into object just emitted into the start timer, and finished object, you'll want to make it to where that destroys the emitted object in the emitter, and this NOT gate also into destroy emitted object. The on-off switch is inside of the emitter's power. NOT gates output, reset, and destroy emitted object. All right here, you can emit with wires if you want to. Start timer, that is object just emitted. Time 2.0 looks like this. Finished, start this timeline. On end trigger, restart this timeline. This timeline I have at 200 once, and inside of this timeline it is deactivating the controls for the walk. Might be deactivating the controls for the charge control sensor that we're using for our charge. This control sensor for charge is also set to remote. And yes, it is deactivating that and the walk. The walk one doesn't have to be on remote. It can be on this and have it on force possession, or if you want it on remote, you can have it on remote. This is the blast. Make your settings for the blast. You might have to move the thing weirdly in a weird place, so just recognize that. And these are the settings that I have. You can emit it with wires. And if you're using a painting, if you're emitting a painting, you'll want to link a trigger zone with that painting or a tag, whichever way you want your damage to be indicated by. You want to link that to the painting, probably like this. Not like this, sorry. That's how you'll want to, you know, put your detection settings down. You'll want to group it with the painting like this. I'll pull out another trigger zone. This is how you group. And then you'll want to press this and then put it on the emitter. That way it's emitting with a trigger zone, and you can press this, emit wires, if it's a painting. Then you want to make your stance. During the stance, you might also want to make it to where there is a keyframe. Press L1 and X on it and record these being off. The reason you want those being off is because they can interfere with your new made animations. And this is how you can do it for rapid tap. So I'm pressing L1 over and over again to get it going. And next we'll show you guys how you can do it with, and this is what happens when I hold it. So next we'll show you how you can do it the traditional way. Now, how do you do this the traditional way that you're probably wanting to do it? So let's say you're holding this and then blast, and if you're still holding it, nothing happens. You'll have to change the duration of how long you want that to be. But I'm still holding the button and nothing is happening, so I have to repress it. If I release it, that happens. And if I release it right here, then you walk in. So this is the traditional way of how to do this. There are some keynotes. You might want to make the ball follow a tag that's inside of your puppet that makes it to where it stays in place where the arms are charging it. I'm talking about the ball that's symbolizing you charging up the cannon blast. Just have your emitter that emits the ball emit with wires. Place a follower inside of that gadget, group it together with the follower gadget, sort of like this, and then have that ball follow the tag that is inside of your puppet. Place the tag around where you want the ball to charge at, and the follower's right here. You would group it like this. The group settings should pop up like that, and then you press plus, and then you would type in the name of this tag. B for me, it's right around there. You would want to mess with the settings, have it follow, mess with the settings here. Then you want to have this connected to the ball charge, and that's how you do that. You link it together, group it together, then you would have this emit with wires. And that's how you do that, just so you guys know. So here we are, the logic behind it all. Pull out a timeline, have it on sustain. Pull out a not gate. The attack that you use to start the attack, put that into the input, the output into restart timeline. Pull out a node, L1 into the input, and the output into a emitter that is your ball charging. Here's the settings. Pause the video if you need to. Click the ball after you've grouped it with the tag and whatnot, or the trigger zone, however you're going to do it. Then destroy emitted object. So this side, you'll want the not gate in there, and you'll also want a switch. So this is while the ball is charging. This turns on the emitter, not on keep changes. This destroys the emitted object whenever the blast finally fires out. This is that blast right here. Have this node inside of the power of that. Have this node also inside of the power of your timeline, and have L1 on the left side and L1 of the left side of the not gate. I'm not sure if you need this keyframe. I think this keyframe could be doing something important, so we'll get to that soon. Down here you'll need something that turns off your walk control sensor, so disable controls, that's what this is doing. It could also be disabling the controls of the one that does your attacks. It is turning on a keyframe. This keyframe is just an extra keyframe for animations if you guys want to do that. I also have this as my main animation for the blast attack, but as you can see, the hand was acting funny, which is why I did that. But you probably won't need to do that. But if you do, another way to animate. And this on switch is also just a disabling on switch, disable controls on switch. So I have 2 of those. Then this right here would turn off your procedural walk and stuff, and also your main animation for your blast attack. And the dot there, you can move that in for fade ins if you want it to fade into your position stance. This is the settings that I have for the blast. You can have it emit with wires, and you might need to place it in a funny place. Shooting straight out once. Emit with wires if you need to, if it's a painting. This keyframe again is turning on this emitter, but it's also being turned on by this on switch, so remember that. And I do believe you don't need this keyframe. Sustain, restart timeline in there, not gate, L1 right there, import node, see if there's anything turning off the node. Let me see if this keyframe was turning off the node. Nothing seems to be turning off the node. Since this is on sustain, it has to be held in order for it to go through. And this not gate, if you're not holding L1, it restarts the timeline. So let's see if that keyframe was even needed. So far it's not needed. No, I don't think you need that keyframe. And what you want to do, if you don't want this to be paused for that long, and I'm still holding L1, if you don't want it to be that long of a pause, what you'll do is shorten the length of the timeline, but you want to make sure there's a space in between here. So what you do is something like this. Shorten the length and make sure there's a space. And you'll shorten that however you want. Make this as fast as you want. And that's a little bit better. That's more like probably the settings that you're wanting for it. What you'll want to do is make sure your hands, you know, just put it in the right place. It might take a while. Press triangle on it if it's not looking right. That's a lot better. And you also want to mess with the hand in this keyframe if you're doing it the way that I'm doing it. I also have one of these keyframes or something in here that's setting the movement speed to 0, but you won't have to do that since this is disabled. But just in case you do, just in case you want to try this, you could have something in here that turns off the movement. But if you do that, if you get hit, you want to make it to where this turns back on. You can also have something that turns down this speed and stuff right here if you want to. If you need to do it that way. If you want to make it to where you can't walk, you can also turn this down with the keyframe. And again, you'll want your procedural walk settings. Put a keyframe in here, press L1 and X to record the keyframe. You want to make it to where your procedural walk and your procedural animations are turned off during the sequence. That way they're not interfering with your animations. So if you need other explanations for this, just let me know. And you might not need this here if the node is doing this. Well, it seems like you need that there for something. Let's see what that node's doing. Oh no, that's just this keyframe's also the stance. So yeah, you need that keyframe. But it's also turning on the emitter. So what I was trying to do was this. I was trying to see if that keyframe even needed to do that. Doesn't look like it does. And what you can do is while you're charging the attack, you can make it to where he turns towards the opponent. Check out my lock-on tutorial, how to make lock-ons, and then that'll help you out also with this. And again, for the ball, you can see it sometimes goes into a different direction or in a different spot than what it needs to go to. What you can do is mess with, like, you know, the movement where, or the place it emits to, or you can just do the follower thing that I have. And your puppet shouldn't move so funny. It's just because I'm using somebody else's puppet, so it's moving really, really, really weird. And check out other tutorials on my channel playlist. Subscribe, follow me in Dreams. I'm Untext YouTube and Dreams, Untext on YouTube, and Untext on Twitch. Follow me all in those places. Thank you guys so much for your time, and peace. Oh, what is up? Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell. Check out my channel playlist for individual tutorials on logic, sculpting, animation, music, and more. It's not Goku because of copyright. It's not Sonic because it's Dragon Ball Z type stuff. Your Hadokens, that's what this is. This is that tutorial. So you'll need two different control sensors. One control sensor for the walk. This one you'll just use for this stuff. This one you'll use for your attacks. This right here can also be used for single button presses, a new method to do it. Pull out a signal manipulator, set it to these settings, make sure it's on this. Then pull out a node, plug this into the power of the node, and then plug the button that you want into the left side, and then the right side can be the start of your combos. You put that into the start of your combos. That should do it for the single button presses, as long as you got something in here that is disabling the controls in here in your attack control sensor. And I believe I have that in the timeline spread out throughout the whole timeline. So you'll want to do that. You also want this right here to turn off the power of the control sensor that makes you walk, and you'll want this to be in the disable control sensor that makes you walk also, and that'll be found on here and this panel right here. You want to set this control sensor to remote and set this one to whatever you want. I usually set it to this and then force possession, but you can also set it to remote also. So that's that. This is the node. That's the signal manipulator. Pause the video if you need more time. And I'm using somebody else's puppet, so if it moves funny, that's the reason why. So you'll want the node to go into something, a keyframe that raises up the charge. So this is whenever it's charging. And you'll want the node to be plugged into the power of that. So you'll press L1 and X on that and record your stance. And you can look up Dragon Ball Z stances. They have a lot of those. I know they do. So just make your favorite stance. Then on this side, you'll want to plug it into an emitter. This is the ball charging. So just look up a ball in the Dreamverse or make your own effect. That's what they are if it's a painting. Paintings are hard to get to collide, so you have to use trigger zones. So what you'd want to do is put a trigger zone in here, or you want to link a trigger zone with the painting, group it together, and then put it in, then you know, select it with the emitter. And then you'll want the detection settings for that trigger zone. You want to set that up, and that's how you can get it to hurt things through trigger zones if it's a painting, because those are harder to get to collide. And this is how you would select the object after linking it with a trigger zone. So it'd be something like this, just to let you guys know, just so you guys can see, because I know a lot of people might not understand what I just said. You can also link tags with this. Then you would set up your detection settings, so whatever your person is labeled that it needs to detect, that you know, then you would pick that. So if you wanted to detect a foe, you would pick that. You can also combine this with wireless receivers and transmitters if you're going to clone stuff to make enemies. I recommend using wireless transmitters and receivers, because it can make things a whole lot easier for your process. And if there's anything invisible, you want to switch on these tabs right here, read those. So what you would do, if it's a tag or a trigger zone, just go over here, press plus, then you would click this, and that way it emits with the trigger zone. And it's detecting me, because I guess you know, that's how you do all that. So let's go ahead and get back to the gist part of the tutorial. And the trigger zone is how you detect and get your hurting stuff done, if it's a painting. So we've got our, let me undo some things there. So we've got our energy ball. This node's plugged into the energy ball, into your stance, and into a NOT gate. The NOT gate is the opposite gadget. If there's power going into this part, then this is not sending off a signal. If there's no power going into this part, no signal going into this part, then this part is sending off a signal. So you want to put this into the NOT gate. And you want to plug the NOT gate's right side into the emitter's destroy emitter object, and also into a timer. So you'll pull out a timer gadget into its restart timeline. And I have mine at about 2.0 up here. Object just emitted is what starts the timeline. Timer finished, destroy emitted object. So those are both plugged into destroy emitted object. The NOT gate right there, and timer finish is plugged into there. Now we have timer finish signal, our timeline. This is our attack. So you'll want to pull out a emitter, set up the settings for the emitter. You might have to move this ball around weirdly, just so you guys know, just so you guys can understand what I'm saying. But it's really easy to do. Just look at it from a couple sides, get it configured the right way. Look up your energy stream, whatever you're going to use for your blast, your shock wave, your cannon, just some other words that you can look up in the Dreamverse, or you can create your own. Then create a keyframe that is the stance. Then put in the on-off switch in here. If you want to make a fade-in effect, this is how you do it. And you might need to put in a keyframe that disables the procedural walk in your puppet. So what do I mean? What do you mean, Untext? What the heck is that? Well, procedural walk is built-in animations that make creating games easier in Dream. So you want to press L1 and square on this. Go here. Turn this off, and maybe turn this off with a keyframe that's in here while your animations are starting. And that's the kind of stuff you want to do whenever you're making punch and kick attacks. You want to have this turned off. This, maybe both of them, maybe just one of them, you'll want that stuff turned off. Otherwise it may get in the way. Your jump animations and built-in animations that would be up here, normally they may get in the way of the animations that you created, which is why you just press L1 and X, and then you want just like that. Usually I turn off procedural walk, not procedural walk. Usually I turn off auto look and motion controls. Turn that down all the way. And you'll want to turn off auto look. I usually turn that stuff off. There's also motion control setting inside of your thingy right here. You might want to unplug if it's plugged into something. And this is how you do this. This is all you have. This is also how you do single button presses, a way that you can do it, a way that works and probably looks, you know, flawless and whatnot. So here we are. I'm pressing L1. Hadouken. And as you can see, I'm moving the controller sticks and he's not moving. So, and I'm holding it now. I have not unreleased it, so I have to press it again in order for it to get up working. So we got all that figured out for you guys. All you got to do is add in your sound effects that you want, and you should be good. You can make your stance a little bit better than mine. You know, it's relatively easy to do, and there's not that many steps to it. Not that many steps to it. The only thing that I just realized is that you might want to, because this right here is still in effect. One of these things are still in effect. You might want to make it to where this gets disabled because it's still in effect. And I had to press it to be able to start moving again, the L1 button. So I just now realized that. I'm not sure if it always does that. I know why it's doing that. Alright. So if this... I wonder if I just do this. That's not it. I know what to do. Keyframe.